Let's return now to our top story, the investigation from the ABC's Four Corners, which uncovers disturbing evidence of how China's Uyghur population is being systematically rounded up and forced to work in detention centres. Some estimated as many as 1 million citizens are being held. Here's a part of Sophie McNeill's report.
All around Australia, members of the Uyghur community are missing someone. Everyone has a family member detained, incarcerated or trapped in Xinjiang. Many have stayed quiet out of fear for their relatives. But now, in desperation, they are coming forward to tell their story.
My older brother, younger brothers and 2 younger sisters, 5 siblings were all taken by the Chinese government. Masked police, heavily armed special force police raided their home and taken them by covering their face and shackling them in front of the kids.
They took my father and other brother and they detained them to the internment camps.
As a father, as a husband, most important thing is your wife and your kids, and they are not with me.
One of the people you just heard from there was Adam Turan from the Australia East Turkistan Association. He is with us now in the studio. Adam, welcome. Thank you very much for your time. You have had 4 members of your family at some point, possibly interned in different levels of camps. Who was the first member of your family?
That was my older sister. She was detained 2016. She was working for the government for 20 plus years. And she was the first from our family to be detained. And then they detained my father and one of my brother. Then they released my sister 10 days after they detained my father and brother.
And then they remained in the camps themselves for some period of time?
Yep. My sister was held about 11 months. And my brother and my dad was, I'm not sure, maybe 11 months, maybe 12 months.
What were you able to learn, if anything, from them about what was happening to them in those camps?
They've been deprived from food and sleep, and they had to sit in the hard bench 6 hours, maybe up to 10 hours, and praising the Chinese government and the president of China, Xi Jinping. And they weren't even given the proper food. So I've got the last picture of my dad before he was detained and the last picture after he was released. There's a big difference between two, yeah.
And there we see that picture.
Yeah.
He was released and then it wasn't long after that before he passed away.
Yeah, he was released around August 2018 and he passed away around September. Like 5-6 weeks after he was released from the camp.
And is there any doubt in your mind that he died as a result of what happened in those camps?
Yeah, of course, because he never been hospitalized. He has a good health, never been to the hospital, and he doesn't have health issues at all. So as we can see from his 2 pictures, we can compare like 10 months or 11 months between 2 pictures.
He'd become so physically unwell.
Yep.
Your sister, you said, used to work for the Xinjiang government. The Chinese government claims that they've been sent to these camps for re-education because they've been part of a terrorist activity. Were any of your family ever involved in that kind of activity?
Not at all. My parents raised 4 of us. We went to the uni, studied in the university in Xinjiang or East Turkistan. And all of us work for the government sectors, so we never been involved in any terrorist activities.
So you were just going about your lives as normal?
Yeah, like ordinary citizen.
How hard is it for you to now be living in Australia, you've come here, lose contact with your family in this way? How do you keep in touch with them? Are you able to work out if they're okay?
It is really hard. At this age and day, in 21st century, 2019, the people can make a FaceTime, for example, or social medias, but we lost all of them So last 2 years, I lost contact with my family members. The last time I talked to my mom she was at the police custody. So that was my last call. She said, don't call me again because I won't be able to pick up your phone. And she said, I'm at the, she didn't say police station, but she said a local council office to the very helpful young guys like you helping me, so assisting me, teaching me not to pick up the calls from overseas.
So it was almost like a coded message to you?
Yes.
That it was not safe
yeah.
for her. So you've not spoken to her since?
Yeah, no.
Have you spoken to your sister, your brother?
No, no one from my family. So I got all of these information that my mom is not in the camps, she's outside the camps. I got all of these information from a third party, from another friend, and who got the information from my family members.
And how dangerous is that for them to pass on those kind of messages to you?
They could be jailed, could be sent to the internment camps. That's one of these reasons that China is excusing, if you have family members overseas or if you contact with the people from overseas, you'll be jailed. So they could be jailed. So that's why they can't directly contact with me.
Do you see what is happening there as some form of ethnic cleansing?
Yeah, definitely, because what the Chinese government claim is we re-educate these people, and what about the hundreds of thousands of intellectuals, of university professors, and the renowned businessmen, well-known businessmen. They don't need education, but they all been detained in the camps. So it's not genocide in terms of the international law. I think it's we can say cultural genocide, because they're not killing straight away, but they separating families from the children, and they detaining the adults in internment camps, and they forcibly taking the kids, the young children, to the orphanage-style kids detained intern camps.
So they've separated them from their families and they want to re-educate them to be Han Chinese?
Yeah, basically brainwashed and denounce our culture and our religion and our ethnic identity. So basically, they want us to be like Han Chinese culturally. So I think I definitely call it cultural genocide.
You watched the Four Corners report tonight, which also disclosed what they believe to be strong evidence that a number of Uyghurs are being sent to labour camps. Did that shock you?
Not at all, because, excuse me, that's been happening to us last how many decades, not in this large scale. I wasn't shocked, but I feel sad for my people. There's no due process, there is no court order, nothing for those people, thousands of millions of people detained for nothing.
And how did you feel when you heard similar stories to your own of other Australians desperate to find out what's happened to their family?
It is sad to hear that. Even tonight I watched Four Corners by myself and I cried. It shouldn't be happening in this day. Australia should do more to protect its own citizens. We said never again for this kind of final solution, but it's still happening in 2019.
The international community has very strongly condemned what is happening there. Is enough being done? China does not seem to be taking notice.
I don't think it's enough. They condemn, but we want some action from the international community, especially the US and the Western countries.
Is it problematic for you in terms of China as a sovereign nation? It's very difficult for the international community to necessarily intervene.
I don't think so, because the international community is not intervening to divide China or helping East Turkistan independence. The international community is talking about or supporting the human rights there. According to the academics and the scholars, what's happening in East Turkistan is unprecedented. This mass internment is unbelievable. the worst human rights violations in human history.
Australian companies have been identified tonight that have been potentially using labour from Uyghurs that might have been in these internment camps and then sent to factories. What should they be doing, in your view, to make sure that this isn't happening, that they're not taking part in this kind of activity?
Of course, they're avoiding themselves from these, I can call it issues or human rights violations or forced labour. I think they should investigate more about where the product's coming from. And if it's from the concentration camps or internment camps, I think they should reconsider their business deal with China.
What do you see your role being in terms of being on the outside in this desperate situation of trying to stay in contact somehow, try to know what's happening to your family? What do you see as your role?
I can say I am the speaker of voiceless people. Mm-hmm. I'm the voice of voiceless people. That's how I see myself, because I lived there for 3 decades and there is no freedom of expressions there. So I know my people, they can't speak up there. So I understand that and I see myself being voice for them.
Do you feel like you're one of the lucky ones to have got out?
Yes, and my life is bonus. I know if I was in East Turkistan, I would be one of the internment camps by now.
And we appreciate you coming and talking to us, and we hope you will somehow keep contact somehow with your family. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.